Hey everybody, I'm Andrés,
I'm Scott.
I'm Abe.
and this is Between Two Stands, a show that takes a closer look at the personalities that make up the Detroit Symphony.
Oh man, I am really excited for this one. I feel like as close to celebrity as we get is today.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And yeah, it's cool to see the mind of someone who's this prolific in so many fields. Just kind of the head of jazz, classical opera. It's just really, really cool to see what goes on in his mind.
Yeah. And the fact that he's still kind and generous enough to talk to the likes of us
Yeah,
for over an hour.
I know,
I mean,
seriously.
it was such an incredible conversation, and the fact that we dove into different parts of his life, different projects, different partnerships. I mean, it was really incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, plus the completely different angle and how to get to a symphony orchestra affiliation, like
Yeah.
through this jazz world and everything else. But I'm sure he was just as excited to talk to us as we were to him, right?
Right, because he knows who we are. Yeah,
Well,
that's the spirit.
without further ado, we are really excited to interview Oscar nominee and six-time Grammy Award-winning artist Terence Blanchard. Terence is a prominent jazz trumpeter, band leader, prolific composer, and music educator. He rose to prominence as a member of the Lionel Hampton Orchestra and later with Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. He went on to co-lead a quintet with Donald Harrison, recording under the labels Concord, Columbia, and Evidence. Terence later went on to lead his own group, showing his versatility, ability, and expertise. He has written music for over 40 films, collaborating with directors like Spike Lee, George Lucas, Ron Shelton, and Casey Lemons. Now in his ninth season as Erb Jazz Creative Chair at the DSO, Blanchard has been extremely effective in his role and connecting with Detroit audiences. In 2019, he was named the first Kenny Burrell Chair in Jazz Studies at UCLA's Herb Alpert School of Music. His current projects include his group, the E Collective, as well as preparing for his opera being premiered by the Metropolitan Opera entitled Fire Shut Up in My Bones. This will be the first opera production done by the Met, written by a black composer. Please welcome Terence Blanchard, everyone. Terence Blanchard, everybody, welcome.
Hey man, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's really a pleasure having you.
it's
Really
warm where I am. I
excited. Don't rub it in. Don't rub it in. If only I could show you the snow here.
heard
Man.
about that.
So, Terence, we like to start our show off with our guests, asking our guests what's on their stand right now. In other words, like what music are you working on right now?
Actually, man, I've been retooling my opera for Fire Shut Up in My Bones. We're gonna premiere at the Met this fall, hopefully, if everything goes well.
Right.
September 27th, so we've been in the works of adding some scenes, cutting down some stuff, and just changing some things around. So that's what I've been working on.
That's
how does
incredible.
that how does that feel having your work premiered or played at the Met?
Man, it's overwhelming, dude. I'm still like even saying it, having the words come out of my mouth just seems kind of surreal, because my father was a person who loved opera. He was a baritone, and he had all of his RCA Victor recordings, which we couldn't touch, with the ones with the plastic, because You weren't allowed to touch those things, man. He would always play those recordings throughout the week, man. And when I became a jazz musician, he was supportive, but he really wanted me to be a classical musician. So now that I'm in the world of opera, man, I constantly think about him. And I know he's up there looking down at me going, I told you so. You know, so it's a bit overwhelming to you know, have a piece that I've written be performed in such a prestigious place. And you know, I've been knowing Peter Gill for a number of years. Back when he was at Sony Classical, we had done some projects together. And when I got to the Met, you know, I've never seen a live performance at the Met prior to, you know, this entire thing. And when I went there, they were having a rehearsal. I forgot what they were rehearsing, but I stepped into the place, and the sound of the place was just so amazing. You sit there and you go, "That's why this is the Met." It's it was just I can't describe it. You have to experience it for yourself. There's nothing you can put in the words that could even give you a glimpse of what it's like to hear music live.
Yeah, I've never
We're
been.
missing that. We're missing that right now, you know?
Oh man, I know. Well, it's the same thing there, man. You know, Paradise. One of my favorite things to do, you know, when we chose for the jazz series, as soon as I announced the show and bring the artists on the stage, man, I run back to the back of the theater upstairs, you know, because I want to hear the sound of the music back there, because that hall is just amazing. It has amazing sound to it.
Yeah. We were actually going to ask about the Paradise Jazz Series concert, you know, with the Wayne Shorter Quartet, like in particular, like if you could bring that up.
That was at 2014.
Oh man, the Wayne Shorter concert will go down in history in my mind as one of the greatest performances we've ever had at the Paradise Jazz Series in Detroit. You know, for a number of reasons. You know, I always tell people, and I tell my friends who come to play the series, I'm like, look, dude, I know you won't believe me, but I'm telling you, that audience is one of the most educated audiences in the world. I said, so you can't come there thinking you're just gonna kind of like gloss over these folks. They know what they're listening, they know what they're hearing. And to hear Wayne Shorter quote something from Miles Davis, which is something he never does. Let me say that one more time. He never does that. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This is that is constantly looking forward, looking back, always talking about trying to push the envelope forward and to where he was a moment in time. And you could see it in the response from the crowd. He even played, I think, the old quote from the writer's thing, right? And the crowd went crazy.
Oh, man.
And I'm sitting there, I'm like, where the hell am I? Is this like the episode of the Twilight Zone? It was just beautiful to see that synergy between great artists and the audience. That when those Art Blakey always used to say this. He said, man, when you have that audience that really they can push the artist in a direction that nobody else can, not other musicians. And you'll have those moments that are just special. Night was, man, I can still feel, I get getting chills thinking about it. But I've been for a long time. I've been to many shows of his, and I've never seen him do anything like that. And you can even see it. I wish we would have had videotaped it, because you could also see it in the response of the guys in his band.
Oh wow!
You know, like they knew he had never done anything like that. They were like, "What?"
Everyone just stopped for a second, like.
Did I just hear that? What did he really like that? Wait a minute. Hey, John, did you do that? Wow. It was incredible, man. You know, but it's those are the moments you live for, man, being an artist. And that's the drug. That's the thing that draws you into this world of art, you know, because you can't recreate that. You know, that's something that's natural. That's that synergy, and that's one of the things that I've loved about being a part of the Detroit community in the arts community, because you want level best to bring them the best, because you know that they're going to appreciate it. You know, that's why we got a chance to bring McCoy before he passed. We got a chance to, you know, a lot of great artists to that area, man, because, you know, man, there's some of the suggestions, some people who don't get it, you know, they were trying to tell me, oh, we should bring this, we should bring, I'm like, no, dude, no, not for this audience. I mean, those people would work in other markets, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with those artists, but for that audience in Detroit, you have to bring the very best.
Do you feel like Detroit has a certain sort of flexibility for the performers too? Like, I don't know if it's like when you go to certain rooms or certain cities that there's an expectation for a jazz group or a jazz musician to play a certain way. And is it like, okay, everybody's going to understand us here in Detroit, or is it?
I think there's well, no, I think there's a lot of flexibility in the audience in Detroit. I think, you know, what I found from the audiences in Detroit is that they expect you to be honest. You know, they expect you to be yourself. So if you play a certain way and that honesty comes through your music, then they're fine with it. You know, they embrace you, you know. But I've seen one of the things that's amazing about that audience, they can sense insincerity. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
And you know, when that's on the stage, I'm backstage cringing. You know, it hasn't happened many times, mostly at the beginning of my tenure there, you know. And you know, I just make little mental notes. Okay.
They saw right through that.
yeah. So, okay, well, he can't come back here again. No. But you know, you start to realize, you know, immediately that it's a special people that. And listen, man, they let you know after the show. They let you know. It's really amazing how people have embraced me in Detroit, you know, because I'll come out and after the show and just speak to people, and they just come up to me and say thank you. You know, it's not about hyping anything up or anything like that. You know, they just come up and say, man, thank you for bringing so and so. And now that we do the Black Box series where we try to introduce young artists, coming artists, they more appreciative about that, because we know we're trying to break probably some artists that people may not have heard, but we feel like they're artists that really have something to say. They give them a shot. They give them a listen. You know, people will give them once over. And if, you know, it's something that they deem to be very sincere, and be about it for sure.
So this is your 9th year as the Erb Jazz Creative Chair, right, with the DSO?
Yes.
And as you think about your time with the DSO, what are you most proud of moving forward and looking into the next season or two, especially as we're coming out of, you know, this crazy, you know, unprecedented time?
Well, one of the things I'm most proud of is membership. You know, the numbers that we've created in terms of drawing people to the concerts, you know, because all too often, as you guys know, in our business, you know, we keep hearing about the struggles of the art world, you know, not only in jazz, but in the classical world itself in terms of selling tickets. You know, we've been very fortunate, man, where we've been selling tickets to these shows. So we've developed a relationship with our fan base. And me personally, I don't want to screw that up, you know. So I'm very proud of that relationship. I'm also proud of the fact that what we were just talking about, you know, developing new things of reaching out and constantly trying to push the envelope forward with the Black Box thing. We're looking at thinking of new ways of broadening our appeal, you know, because the thing that I've been saying about the DSO series is that it shouldn't just be for the DSO crowd. You know, one of the things that I loved about the Cyrus Chestnut concert is that people well outside the DSO community got a chance to experience what people in the community have been experiencing over the last few years. And there was a great reaction to that. And Chris Harrington and myself, we've been talking about this for a while. You know, how do we create an online presence, you know, where we stream the concerts out to the world? Because I do think that in the world view, Detroit gets overlooked a bit, you know, in terms of what Detroit has to offer in that realm. You know,
yeah,
Detroit is always, in jazz at least, Detroit has always kind of been looked historically, you know, about what, you know, musicians have been contributing to the world of jazz. But man, I'm like, this is something going on right now. This community is like very vibrant, and there's a lot going on here right now. I think the world needs to know about it and experience what's happening here.
I feel like it goes back to that authenticity that you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
The audience appreciates that, and I've noticed frustrations. You know, I'm a French horn player. Like there's jazz that we can do, but it's not really. I know my limitations, at least my own. But
I'll tell it to Rick Todd, man.
Yeah, Rick Todd could do it. Adam Unsworth at University of Michigan is also pretty good, but not me. But you know, I appreciate it. But still, I think that there's the common frustration is that we have the authenticity and we want to share it with as many people as possible. So I totally understand what you mean as far as let's show.
Yeah, exactly.
We got it.
Oh man, listen, because when we did the Miles Davis concert, you know, with members from the DSO, that was amazing. You know, I thought that was a great show. And there, I mean, this has been a ton of shows, you know, the Diane Reeves stuff with Dave Holland. I mean, it's been countless number of great performances there that I think have been classic. You know, Wayne Shorter, we were just talking about it, you know, if that thing would have been streamed live, it would have gone down in history as one of the greatest concerts of all time. You know what I mean? Because it would have been like one of those live at Massey Hall type events. You know, I firmly believe, because it just had all of those elements to it. You know, a very eager and appreciative and smart audience with a genius on stage with a great band, you know, in a great sounding room. You know, what else can you ask for other than that?
I guess that means we got to start recording every concert now, like just in case we get another one of those gems, right? Like
that's where we've been trying to go.
Yeah, exactly. just you know, just cover all the bases. Hey, so you worked with Art Blakey, and actually, speaking of Chris, he said you had a pretty good story about one of your first gigs with that group.
Oh no, he's talking about when I was playing in Detroit, man. Mm-hmm. That was my introduction to the Detroit audience, man. I know what he's talking about. I'm gonna get on Chris for telling the story.
We can always edit it out if you want.
No, it's fine. We were playing at the Pontchartrain Hotel. They used to do these shows at the top, on the rooftop of the hotel. And man, I was like 20 years old. I was a kid, and I kept hearing about Detroit, man. Curtis Fuller was like my mentor when I was in the Lionel Hampton band. And he used to talk to me about, man, when you go to Detroit, you know, people, man, they know what they can't go over there, man, and play around. You got to know what you go to Detroit. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, man. So we get to Detroit, and we're at the Pontchartrain Hotel, and you had to walk on the side of the audience to get to the stage, you know, because it was just an open air thing. Man, and as I'm walking to the stage, there was this elderly gentleman sitting there. He just looked at me and he goes, "Be listening to them things you playing." And I went, "Oh, damn." He just freaked me out, man. You know what I mean? And so I was like, okay. And sometimes my history really like, I'm like, damn, I know he was on mine the entire show, man. I really couldn't get myself together. I was like, God. It's my introduction to Detroit audience.
You never forgot his face, huh?
No, man. That was something else, man. And it was funny because he kind of redeemed me after the show, because he came up to me, yeah, young fella, man, I like them things you were playing. I was like, ooh, thank you, Jesus. Oh man, I was sitting up there on the bandstand now.
That's great. So, man, and also, of course, you're like, you work with Spike Lee on all of his movies. Like, that is an incredible relationship. And yeah, can you tell us about, first of all, how you guys like, got connected and what it's been like, working together?
It's funny, man. Last year when we had the Oscar run, we were doing all of these interviews together. So this from the LA Times. He was interviewing Barry Alexander, Brown, Spike, and myself, three of us. And he goes, so man, what is it like, having worked together for 30 years? And we were getting ready to answer him. 30 years. 30 years, it's been a great working relationship, man. It all started with me playing the piano during the session. Spike heard what I liked. He heard playing and liked it, and then asked to use it, and then asked me to write a string arrangement for it. It was funny, and it was one of those moments I tell my students all the time: do you tell the truth or do you lie? He said, can you write a string arrangement for this? And I go, sure. I felt like the guy on Saturday Night Live. Sure. Yeah, of course. I literally left him in and called my composition teacher and said, hey, man, how do I write a string arrangement? But it's been a great relationship ever since then. Funny, I did an interview yesterday talking about Spike, and I was just saying, the beautiful thing about our relationship is that with every project he's done, there's just constant growth in each project. So it's forced me to kind of like be in lockstep with that, because it's a crazy feeling being a composer with a person like him, because man, it's the only analogy I can use, man. I've been using this a lot. I said, man, it's like being on the lake of LeBron, bro. And it's at the end of the game, 7th game in the finals, bro. 5 seconds left, you're on a fast break, and you run into the corner thinking LeBron's gonna take the line. Nope, you got it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you got to take the shot. Because when he gives you the prop, you look and you go, the acting is it looks great, the thing is amazing, and his directing is just off the chain. And there's not much left to do other than the music. So I am not going to be the weak link in the chain. So it's always forced me to kind of up my game whenever I work with him.
That's kind of incredible, though, like the kind of trust that must be built in that relationship where it's such a complete product, and he knows that you're going to also bring your best and everything.
Well, that's the other part of it, though, man. That's the other part of it, too, is, I mean, we were laughing about it the other day, because he doesn't realize he does this to me, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Because I just play it off. I just never say anything, but it's like, man, we'll have a screening, and this is before the music's done, obviously. And he'll fly me to New York, and we'll go to a theater and just watch it. And then him, and then some of the producers, other people standing around, and the Spike would go, "Yeah, Terence about to take us to the next level." I'm like, I'm like, yeah, bro, thanks for that. Yeah, okay, man. Yeah, can I go now?
Terence, I bet Spike's not going to enjoy that reference to the Lakers and LeBron, man. Apparently, you got to watch out for that, right?
Hey, man, you first met him, man, the first session, I think it was for school days, man. I walked into the session. I literally had on a Lakers hat. They had just beaten Boston. I had on the championship shirt. Had on my purple and gold Converses, bro. I had the leather ones, Yeah. Man, I walk into the session, I was proud, man. He said, Lakers fan. I was like, yeah, man. I didn't know Spike from Adam, bro. I, really didn't know. He said, Lakers fan. I was like, yeah, man, what's up, man? Next thing I know, man, I'm sitting courtside going, take him, Pat. Take him, Pat.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
mean, you got to hand it to him. He sticks with them through thick and thin,
I know, man. You know what? I texted him the other day. I texted him. I said, "Hey, man, looks like you may become a Nets fan, huh?" He said, "No, baby, blue and orange forever." I went, "Dude, okay. It's like the Titanic. You're going down with the ship."
Right. Man, Terrence, I always wanted to ask a composer of movie music this. And since you have such a close relationship with Spike Lee, I figured that you'd be the best guy to ask. But like, music creates the scene in so many ways in movies, right? Like, like a scene can be nothing or everything with music. How much guidance does a director give you with a scene, or does he just, or do they just kind of give you free reign over it?
Take it to the next level.
Yeah, take it to the next level, right?
Yeah, no pressure.
Yeah.
It literally depends on the director. I mean, I've worked with, it's oddly enough, man, there's a couple of directors that I work with. They give you free room. They just, Spike is one of those. Spike, I'll give him thematic material, and once he assigns the themes to the characters, man, he does anything to get to the studio. I mean, literally, he won't hear anything till we get to the studio. So with that amount of trust, you want to make sure you do your best to not let anybody down. George Lucas was like that when I worked with him on Red Tails. I was surprised because I thought, man, it's for John Williams. Now he's got me doing this. And he's like, "Oh, I know it'll be fine." I'm like, "Excuse me?" You know what I mean? Right. Like, again, no pressure. Casey, she's, working with her on Harriet, same thing. There were some things that I wanted to play for her just so she could get a sense of what was going on. So for the most part, there are a lot of people who really don't, the people that I worked with for Perry Mason, man, the same thing. They give you a lot of room, but then there are other people, man, and I think a lot of times when people are really like demanding and demonstrative, I think it's because they don't trust their own product. You know what I mean? I think there's a certain type of inherent nervousness about what's going on, where they try to, create something that's probably not even there, whereas if, we all, come on, man, we all may have an idea about what an artistic project may be, but in the midst of it, it may evolve into something else. The great people that I've worked with recognize that and go with it. And I think sometimes I've worked with a couple of people, not a lot, but a couple of people, they try to fight against that because they have this thing about making. It's like, no, but it's beautiful that it is, So for the most part, I don't run into that a lot. A lot of people will trust the process. Spike says this all the time. And I just did an interview with Spike and Delroy Lindo. Well, Delroy said the same thing Spike during shooting. He's, look, Spike gives us direction. He gives us, obviously we have the scripts and, but when it comes to shoot, he gives us room to bring things to the character, because they were talking about when they did Malcolm X and Delroy did West Indian Archie. The last scene where Malcolm goes back to see West Indian Archie and he has a stroke, Spike didn't know anything about that. He thought Delroy was really having a stroke. Wow. He said, man, he said, I was getting ready to dial 911.
Wow, that's crazy.
So I've heard for movies sometimes the music is, it's the last thing to happen before a movie might be released.
Yeah.
And have you, even though a director like Spike might give you free reign, you're generally, are you under crunch to get it done, or do you usually have some time?
No, it depends. Normally Spike is really great about that because Spike is one of the few directors, man, that goes into the shooting process, understanding what he wants to do with the music. So he not only saves time, but he also saves money in the budget. Like Spike is very frugal when it comes to shooting, dude. You know, he knows that he's got to have a certain amount of money set aside. That's why we always have orchestra, you know, because he's going to make sure that there are enough resources to go out and do that. You know, and he's very smart about that. So not only will he do that, but he's, you know, also going to tell me, look, man, I think there's, I can't remember, but maybe there was one time I didn't have much time, but I can't remember when that was. For the most part, you know, I'll get 6 to 8 weeks, you know, to score one of his films.
That still doesn't sound like a lot of time to me.
Yeah,
Like,
it really doesn't.
Hey man, listen, you know what, one of the funniest things that ever happened to me, man, I was on a panel discussion with Newman and Harry Gregson Williams one time for the film festival. And that question came up. So how long do you get a chance? How long do you guys get to score films? And I turned to them two guys. I said, yeah, how long do you guys get to score films?
Yeah, 6 to 8 weeks. That does not seem like a lot. I would need 6 to 8 years to get like just a simple theme.
So one question I wanted to ask, you have, you know, we've touched a little bit on all the different things that you do a little bit, you know, jazz and opera and movie scores and everything else. But we feel fulfilled as artists in so many different ways. You know, I have my role as the third horn in the DSO, and I enjoy it very much and feel fulfilled by that sometimes, you know, and pretty often. But is there one hat that you wear that like makes you feel that more? Like, are you, as a composer, do you like to see your creations come to life and that gives you that feeling? Or is it like as a performer, you're engaged in bringing it to life? Or is it jazz, like where you can sort of do both?
It's, you know, man, that's a good question, because I would have to say performing, obviously, you know, playing with my band is probably the thing that gives me the most fulfillment. But that opera thing is something that's unique, and I can't explain it, because film, while I really enjoy film and television, you know, because for me, I don't know how you guys feel, but for me, I really get a kick out of creating scenarios, you know, like putting things together, whether they're tense or whether they're harmonious, whether they're syncopated or whether they're still. I get a real kick out of creating those moments musically, right? But in television and film, I'm just doing that for somebody else's idea or story. In opera, the story, I'm creating all of the elements. You know what I mean? You know, so it's so different, because I'm sitting here in a room and I'm thinking about, oh, well, he's walking through the woods. Okay, but what is that sound? And I'm creating that sound for an orchestra, because they have sound for the orchestra. You know, it's not like being in a film where they not have any music. No, this is going to have music. And all of a sudden, you know, you get to rehearsal when people on the Zitz Pro, where they're just sitting there, you know, singing and everything, but then it starts to freak you out, because then everybody gets on a big, start to block out how this thing starts to come alive. Now you're seeing people move around and singing these lines you wrote in your living room. That's
amazing. That's
thing,
amazing.
you know what I mean? It's like, get out of here, you know?
Incredible.
And then you get to a theater and now it's all lit, and the lighting. This last opera, if I shut up in my, I was telling Jim Robertson, who's the director, I said, man, I never experienced anything like this, where the lighting guys, the set design guys, the wardrobe guys, I said, it's like we were all one mind and we never talked to each other. It was the weirdest kind of thing. It's like it was a piece set in a period, but it still had a lot of tinge to it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's been my career the entire time, about what I tried to do, pay homage to the past while looking forward. And I can't wait to see what's going to happen with the opera at the Met, because we go from having like maybe 10 people in the chorus to going to have 38.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that.
Who wrote the libretto to that, or did you write it, or?
No. No, I'm not crazy. Right. My good friend Casey Lemons, she wrote the libretto.
Okay.
To it. And what's funny about that, man? So it's Charles Blow's book about his life growing up. So they Opera St. Louis was a company that commissioned the work, so they flew us all to St. Louis. And man, I felt so sorry for Charles, because Casey, that's my sister, man. We're family. We've been on each other. But I investigative journalists, man. So whenever you saw Charles walking, there was Casey right behind him asking him questions, like 3 days. He'd walk this way.
Like a shadow.
Oh man, yeah, it was fun. Hilarious.
That's
I just
awesome.
want this one section in the book. Yeah.
So Terence, you mentioned performing and everything, and I just recently watched your NPR Tiny Desk concert with your group, the E Collective. First of all, I love Tiny Desk concerts. I've never seen a bad one yet. Like it's just such a cool thing. And if anyone watching hasn't seen Terence, the E Collective, you gotta check it out. It's awesome. But it was an incredible performance, and I was reading a little bit about it, and it was kind of in some of the names of the pieces was in response to the what happened with George Floyd this year. And I was going to see if you could maybe talk about that album, maybe, or that performance, and maybe see how that all kind of inspired you.
Well, what happened was the E Collective was put together, man, because of albums a couple of films that I had done. Talk to Me was one of them. Inside Man was another, where we were doing groove-based music. And the drummer and on the film at the time, Oscar C, and he kept saying, man, we should put together a group. And so a couple of years later, I finally got a chance to do it. But when we started to do it, so many things happening in the world. Mike Brown was killed. The kid was killed in Florida. There was so many shootings. And we decided to, focus the music around Black Lives Matter and I Can't Breathe campaigns. So the first album was called Breathless, and then we did another album called Live, where we went to some of those areas where we had shootings, and we tried to perform the music live. And then we had some civic engagement in those areas, trying to create a dialogue around gun violence, because we kept feeling like the topic of gun violence was getting lost, because people kept talking about Donald Trump every day in the news and everything that was going on with him. We wanted to kind of steer the conversations in other directions. So that's kind of been what's going on. We had one tune called Soldiers. That was one of my tunes that I had written for all of the social workers, I think, who don't get any recognition, man. You see it going on right now, man. These front workers who are dealing with COVID-19, bro. I was on the phone with a friend of mine. She's a doctor. She lives in Pennsylvania. Dr. Rennie Polite. She's amazing, and she was talking to me about the vaccine and how important it is for people in the Black and brown communities to understand what's going on with the vaccine, because there's so much misinformation out there about the vaccine. When you have reactions to the vaccine, that's your body actually getting prepared to do battle, virus. And so, there's so many things out there that I think are so important. So with the band, we try to use it, instead of doing happy music, we've been trying to use this band as a tool to kind of create discussion. And for example, we played in Cleveland, man, and we did a live show, and we were recording the music for the second album. And this elderly guy white gentleman had come up to me and said, "Man, I want to talk to you about the show." And I was getting ready to go, "Oh God, here we go," because a lot of what was happening to me at the time was, "Hey man, this is great, but I really miss your band, the jazz band." I was getting out of that, man. So I was waiting for him to say it. I was like, okay, this is gonna be another one of those conversations. He started off by saying, "I wanted to hear your Tale of God's music, man, the music from the documentary you did with Spike Lee. I thought I was going to hear that music. It was really beautiful." And I go, "Oh, thank you." He said, "But this music just sounded angry." And I went, "Uh-oh, here we go." Then he says, "But then you told the crowd what the music was about gun violence." And then he said, then I had to think to myself, well, if the guy that did that music is so angry about this topic, maybe I need to rethink my position on gun control.
Wow.
Well, that's amazing.
That
was a powerful moment for me. And was something that reinvigorated me about the collective and the importance of being true to what it is that you feel when you're creating music.
Absolutely. That's really incredible. Yeah. I mean, yeah, at least hey, we know that you changed at least one person's mind.
Right. Exactly. Well,
but also how fantastic to have the collaboration and the different people coming together to make that statement in a cohesive way. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing about the band that I love, man. You know, it's a band, you know, the guitarist in the band, man, you know, went to Stanford, you know, and studied anthropology. The bassist was going to be an architect. The drummer plays with Lionel Richie. You know what I mean? It's been and to bring all of these personalities together to create this music, man, it's been a beautiful experience working with him. You know, I'm not the pianist, the guitarist. After a show, he doesn't do it so much anymore, but sometimes, man, he would literally, we'd finish the show and he would sit down at the piano and play Chopin. But he looks like a rock and roll dude.
Yeah.
I know people look at this band and go, "Man, who are these?"
Multi-dimensional. You know, that's actually another question I have for you. I mean, you know, you're obviously so well versed in so many types of music, and you know, going back to the whole classical orchestral perspective. Are there any composers that inspired you when and that you think of when you write your music?
Well, I mean, there were a number of guys. You know, obviously, Stravinsky was one that I think really opened my eyes to a lot of things. Bartok, when I was a kid, you know, I kept the little book form of the string quartets. Mm-hmm. I kept that with me a lot of when I was traveling on the road, and I would always listen to it and open it up. But Stravinsky, I think what got me about Stravinsky, man, was while I was touring with Art Blakey, we were playing someplace in Hungary, and I remember walking the street, and I heard this young lady. She was playing a recorder, and she was playing some Hungarian folk tune, right? Mm-hmm. And I didn't know it was a Hungarian folk tune. I'm sitting there going, "She's playing Stravinsky."
Oh, yeah. So
you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, so he pulled from all those themes and yeah, cultural melodies. That's awesome.
And then I said to myself, "Oh," because my composition teacher, Roger Dickinson, was telling me when I was starting to work in film around that same time, you know, he said, "Man, you're gaining all of this experience, something else, you know." He said, "So maybe you'll be able to take those articulations in jazz and notate that in a way for the orchestra to make it work in the orchestra." And I didn't really get that for the longest time when he would tell me that. I didn't get it. But then that memory of hearing that young lady play that Hungarian stuff and then thinking about what Stravinsky had done, it started to click for me then. I went, "Oh, okay." So then Stravinsky's music took whole meaning for me, because it like he went in his folklore. And okay, let me dig deep into that and then summarize a lot of that and bring something else from it, you know. So yeah, I still look at him as being like a person who I really, really admire in terms of not shunning who he is, but actually taking that and using that to be the basis, you know, for his inspiration.
That's interesting to me because I actually can make a pretty direct comparison between the two of y'all. Like Stravinsky is known for wearing all these different composers' hats really well. It's like he did this thing with the Rite of Spring and Petrushka and that. And then like later on, he wrote like Pulcinella and, you know, Jeu de Cartes, and it was this neoclassical thing. And he did that also exceptionally well. And you have your different genres that you can wear.
No, thank you.
Of course, thank you with the DSO and contributing everything you have. Which I wanted to get to. You know, we talked about your Tiny Desk concert and your opera coming up. For those that don't know your work as well, what would you point them to like get to know you as your compositional voice or your work, or what do you like? What was a fun concert even that you can show them?
Wow, there's so many, you know, for different reasons. I remember it's funny you said fun concert. I remember there's a fun concert and I'm glad it's not online because it was fun for the wrong reasons, man.
Hey, we all have a few of those, right?
Yeah, there's a few of those for everybody.
I did a show with Sonny Rollins at Carnegie Hall one time, man. And it was funny because I was talking to Branford Marsalis about it. And I said, man, you know, first of all, I was at a friend's house and Sonny called me. And when it was funny because I used to do a Sonny impression all the time. And when Sonny called me, I thought somebody was like really messing with me. You know, because he called me at a friend's house. This is before cell phones, you know what I mean? So, you know, I pick up the phone, Terrence, I'm like, yeah, Sonny's here. I'm like, get out. And then he goes, Paul told me a lot about you. Now that's my teacher from Rutgers. When he said Paul, I went, oh shit, this is Sonny Rollins. So anyway, you know, I told Bradford, I said, man, I got to play this gig with Sonny Rollins in Carnegie Hall. And Bradford goes, go and get your ass kicked just like the rest of us.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. So, you know, Sonny we played the first couple of tunes together. And I said, oh man, this is not going to be that. All right, cool. That third tune, Lord have mercy. He started playing and he was just playing so many ideas and he was leaning on his left leg, you know, and it was just going up and down. And I was like, man, and I play after this. And look, and it looked like he was about to finish. And then looked around and he switched over to the right leg and kept going. And I was backstage in Carnegie Hall in the new suit, man. I was trying to be clean, sweating like a pig, man. And
man.
Oh, they were back there laughing at me. That was fun. I had some great concerts. One of them, which was memorable for me, was after we did A Tale of God's Will with orchestra. We actually performed that music live at Jazz Fest here in New Orleans. And they had me closing the Jazz Fest stage at the same time that Stevie was closing the Acura stage, which is the big stage where all of the big pop artists would close. And, you know, some friends of mine had these T-shirts made, Stevie versus Terence, it's on, you know? And some people who were at Stevie's show told me that when we started to play Funeral Dirge, and it has a trumpet melody, they said Stevie stopped his show so you could hear the trumpet play the melody at his show.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Man.
Yeah. I wish I was there for that. That sounds amazing. What year was that?
I'm not sure. Probably 2006 or 7. Probably no. It had to be 2006 because I think that was right after the hurricane.
Katrina.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible, man. Dude, so hey, man. I mean, we grilled you a bunch. I mean, that's a bunch of questions. Thank you for taking the time, man. We're so grateful to have you, on the show and a part of our DSO organization. Man, you're an incredible artist and person and everything. So just really thankful.
Thank you for having me, man. I've loved my entire tenure there with you guys. Chris and everybody there, man, has been just amazing. It was supposed to be a 2-year stint, and it's just been great. I look forward to every year. And I like you said earlier, we just try to think of ways to try to make it better every year. And it's been a joy working with you guys.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you, Terrence.
Appreciate you guys too, man.